I'm going to show you how to make my Aunt Kathy's famous baked stuffing pork chops, and just picture a beautiful layer of stuffing. We're actually going to do homemade creamed corn for the stuffing, and then basically pie it all together, bake it. It's delicious. It's going to start off with a really good pork chop. I think that's the trick of this recipe. And you want to go to like a butcher because it's pretty hard to find like a pork chop on the bone. So you'll see here, this has the bone on there, really nice fat content that basically just equals flavor. And then, you know, most grocery stores might have this as well, but that's like the trick. So get the pork chops. I got 4 here. And the trick is you do want to trim off a little bit of the fat because it's not going to all render out. So I like to just go around, trim a little bit of the fat off. And I actually like to cut into it about every inch or so. Basically doing this, it's going to allow the fat room to render out. So it's going to get extra crispy on the sides. That's what we're after. And then a little pro tip. So this is a needler here. Basically every butcher, most restaurants will use this. So it's pretty standard. And I hit each side of the pork chop. And I'll do this for like chicken, beef, especially like grass-fed where it's a tougher cut. And it's basically just breaking up the muscle fibers. So it's going to be more tender. And also, if you're doing like a marinade or anything, it's really good for that. It's going to soak in throughout the meat more. So go through, do that. And then we're going to throw these on a wire rack. And I'm going to hit them with salt on each side. Essentially right here, we're doing a dry brine. So you're going to want to put this in the fridge uncovered overnight. That's basically going to soak some of that moisture out. So it's going to provide a more crispy exterior, but it's actually going to preserve the moisture inside the meat. So it's going to be very juicy and delicious. Now that we got the pork taken care of and in the fridge, let's get started on our homemade creamed corn. And just a little note here, say if you're rushing on time or want something easier, you could use a canned creamed corn. Originally, that's what this recipe was intended for. So you could kind of choose which route you want to go down. We're going to be making the homemade creamed corn this route though. So start with 4 ears of corn. Remove the husk and then all those little hairs. Give it a nice rinse too. This will help kind of like fully clean it. And then basically add to some boiling water with a little salt. We're going to cover this and cook for 5 minutes. We're basically just getting the corn a little soft. Remove, let this cool a little bit, and then we're just going to slice the corn off. And here's a cool little pro tip. Actually learned this from the homie Martha Stewart. So use the back of a spoon and basically just go down throughout the cob. Then what this is going to do, this is called corn pulp that it's removing. It's super sweet and delicious, and especially since we're making a creamed corn, it's going to be so good in there. So do all of that, add this to a bowl. We'll prep our other ingredients. Basically just grab medium-sized sweet onion, cut that in half, and then we're going to dice this up and then set aside. Also grate some Parmigiano Reggiano. Got to give it a little smell. This stuff is funky in all the right ways. So grate off a good amount of that. And then we're going to throw that into the creamed corn. Now that we have all the ingredients prepped, grab yourself a pan and then add in a little olive oil. Then we're going to start by sauteing the onion. So just throw that in, hit it with a little salt. And then big thing here, we're just waiting for like the moisture to kind of go away. So we don't need like a hard saute or anything. So let this just go for a few minutes. Add in the corn. We're going to toss this for about 3 to 5 minutes. I like to hit it with a little more salt and pepper at this point. Just continue to saute. Throw in 2 tablespoons of butter and keep tossing. Now add in 1.5 cups of half and half. This way we're going to get it nice and creamy. Keep stirring until we get a nice little simmer. So basically once the little bubbles start going, that's when we can start adding in our other ingredients. Throw in 1 tablespoon of honey, so that'll just give it a beautiful little sweetness. Hit it with 1/4 teaspoon garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon pepper, 1 teaspoon salt. Give this a nice mix up. Add in 1/3 cup shredded parm. Slowly mix this in on low heat. Now that Parmesan's all melted and it's starting to get a little thick, the trick here is we're going to add half of this mixture to a blender. Blend it until a thick puree form, so you don't have to go too crazy on the blender. Just until it starts to combine, it's nice and thick. And then add this back to the pan. So now you can see here we still have some nice corn chunks. We still have that smooth puree. And I like to throw in additional 2 tablespoons of butter. And at this point, give it a little spoonful of taste. We're just checking for seasoning. So if you want a little more salt or pepper, throw it in at this point. Add this to a bowl. We're going to set it aside, let it cool down a bit, and we're going to get started on our stuffing ingredients. stuffing, I love to use a nice sourdough loaf of bread. So basically just cut the ends off, cut it into nice sized slices. We're basically going to be using about like 6 to 7 slices of bread. Once you have it sliced up, you're basically just going to cut it into strips and then give it a nice big cube. Throw that into a bowl. And you can't have stuffing without some celery and carrot. So this is how I like to do the celery. Just cut the ends off. Just cut it in like a few strips and then give it a nice little dice. For the carrot, very similar. Cut the ends off, peel it, and then we're gonna cut it into slices. Be very careful, and then basically just cut that so that it makes a beautiful dice. Get a nice cast iron pan, get that pretty hot, throw in some olive oil. Then you're going to want to add in the 1/2 cup of carrot and then add in 1.5 cups of celery. Hit that with a little salt and pepper. Give it a nice saute. And we basically just want to soften this for a little bit. Those are looking beautiful, so grab yourself a bowl, throw the vegetables in there, and then we are going to take these and throw it into the bread mixture. And now we're also going to want to add in our creamed corn. Trick here is to start with half of the creamed corn mixture because you want to toss it. So if it's starting to feel like it's getting a little soggy, I would hold off on that. But if it feels like the stuffing's pretty dry, kind of just add a little more creamed corn as you go. Just find that good kind of ratio. This ratio is looking really good. I always check for seasoning at this point, and I would say it needs a little more salt and pepper. So add in to your liking. Give it our mix up, try it again, and this is tasting wonderful. Set this aside, and now we're gonna start our spice blend for the pork. Grab a small bowl, throw in some pepper, do some garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika. Give that a little stir, and then you're basically just wanna hit it each side on the pork and throw it in a cast iron pan with a little avocado oil in there. Basically, we're just cooking about like 1 to 2 minutes per side, just getting a little bit of a crust on there. I also like to pick up the pork chop, basically just hold down on the side of the fat. It's going to help render out some of the fat, so we'll get a little more crispy. So once you got a nice sear on those, add to a casserole dish. You're going to cover this with tinfoil, throw in an oven at 325 for 30 minutes. Essentially remove this from the oven once the time is up. You're going to see there's a lot of liquid in there, so basically pour that out into a bowl. Leave a little bit, and then we're going to top the pork chops with the stuffing. So do a nice even layer on all of the pork chops, and then we're going to cover this and cook again for 15 minutes. Essentially remove the cover off of the casserole dish after the 15 minutes. Cook an additional 10 minutes. Then I remove it. What I like to do is spoon over some of the liquid to get it nice and juicy all throughout the pork chops. And now it's time to taste. I mean, first off, just look how comforting and delicious this is. I'm telling you, it is so homey. I just love, love, love eating this. So cutting it in half, you could see the beautiful layer of stuffing with that moist pork chop, and then when you eat this together, we get the bite of the stuffing, the pork chop. It is so delicious. Definitely give this dish a try, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.